Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Holt End Talks. I'm your host, Scott Acton, joined by Jamie Acton as always, and we've got a special guest today, Daniel Gould. How are we?
Yep, all good, thank you.
All good, mate.
Yep. Daniel's coming on to speak about United. He's a United fan, and we had to rope someone in. Before we get to that, we'll just touch on, obviously, Spurs, Hadley. Just a quick one on your thoughts on that game on Friday night.
Yeah, done what expected. I mean, I feel like if we really wanted to, we could have really put them to the sword. Got 4 or 5, but I mean, it was really didn't have to get out of a second gear. Really, obviously, you can see they weren't right up for it up until I think there was a little bit of argy-bargy, wasn't there, in the second half with Konsa and Onana and Reguilon. I think apart from that, they didn't look interested one bit. So yeah, but we took care of business. We had to win, and that's what we done. So
yeah, it was pretty. I mean, the first half was pretty terrible. Just saying, and apart from Son on the counter, they didn't really have anything. The second half, it kind of opened up. Once we got the first goal, they were always going under.
yeah, I think it was weird as well because they actually had after the McGinn chance, they had a really good opportunity through Odebear, I think it was, from a Son cross. And again, even if we went 1-0 down, I still would have thought we would have won comfortably. But it was a good save by Emmy, and then but yeah, like I said, business as usual especially with us at home. I think it's now 18 unbeaten, and yeah, I think it's 7 wins in a row at home. So just churn them out at the minute. Obviously, we'll touch on it a bit later on with United, but we said, we had to, those last 4 games, we had to get four wins out of 4, and so far we've got 3 out of 3, so looking good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously now that everyone's played, City have still got to play tomorrow, but there's literally a point in it from 7th to 3rd. If City drop points tomorrow against Bournemouth, which is plausible, then it obviously goes down to the wire. We'll touch on United. Friday, when we were driving back, I was hoping that United would hold out against Chelsea, but obviously Marc Cucurella turned into prime Shearer. And how he's managed to score that, I'll never know. But, Daniel, what's your initial thoughts on United's season as a whole?
It's just terrible every angle you look at it. I think the European run has been a saving grace, but I believe that we've kind of got away with it in a lot of games. It highlights the actual quality in that competition. Now no one's coming down from the Champions League. The quality in that tournament is just not as strong as it was 3, 4, 5 years ago, where you would have to beat some top sides to get anywhere near the semi-finals. We're scraping past Lyon, who are an average side, and we're needing a miracle in the last 5 minutes to get through that. I was really surprised with Bilbao. They were, they're knocking 3rd or 4th in La Liga, aren't they? They just didn't offer anything. And we're kind of getting away with not really having to do too much. You see our league form, you see our cup form in the English cups anyway, and it's just been terrible. Yet we can get away with still being unbeaten in the Europa League. It just doesn't. I just don't think it really. Well, it just highlights how much of a difference there is between your mid-level English sides and your mid-level European sides. And the Premier League has just got so much more buying power and clout that you can kind of steamroll these things pretty easily with putting pretty average performances together with quite a terrible team. So I think, like any United fan this year, I think we're just waiting for it to be over. It's just painful every week, watching them and or listening to them, reading about it. I saw a stat yesterday. We haven't put back-to-back wins in the league together all season. We haven't won 2 games in a row, which is just it's terrible. And we're very, very fortunate that the 3 sides that have gone down have been so poor. The three promoted teams were just so poor this season. In another season, we could have been in real trouble. So I think there needs to be a massive reset. I don't think there needs to be a quick trigger to get any sort of questions behind Amorim. I think he will need to be given time because he's got an absolute disaster of a squad that's been put together by 3 or 4 managers, and players have been allowed to hang around and coming to the end of their contracts. They're overpaying for players, so they can't get rid of them. And we'll see what he can do in the summer. It'll be interesting. But I don't believe there'll be any sort of massive uplift next year. I think we'll be in a similar situation, kind of mid to lower of the table. So yeah, it's just a stark reminder that United are not United anymore, unfortunately. And we are battling with those mid-table teams. So we'll see what next year brings. But yeah, we just want to get off. Get off the league, really.
I mean, it will be typical United, though, to win a trophy when they've been absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, it will be. And I do feel that we do have a good chance against Spurs. Although in your game, they obviously had 1.5 eyes on Wednesday night. So that's why they put the team out that they did. But it's a final, anything can happen. And they've just managed to create those moments, especially in Europe, where they can kind of find something from somewhere. They produce an amazing first 45 minutes in Bilbao, basically kill the tie a quarter of the way through. They somehow rescue it against Lyon. You wouldn't put it past them on a one-off game against a pretty average Spurs side. And it would just be typical United to go 16th, 17th in the league, wherever we finish up, and go and win a European trophy and get Champions League football next year, which I don't really want because the state we're in, we'll just get embarrassed. Like that's another level up. And the English teams really did kind of give a good account of themselves this year, especially Villa were they got so many plaudits from the people on how they dealt with PSG, and unfortunately they were very close to running them to extra time. But yeah, I don't. It doesn't help us in the transfer market, but I really wouldn't mind a year off Europe just to focus, get your league form back on track, and see where it goes from there. But yeah, it's pretty despondent at the moment being a fan, unfortunately.
Jay, what's your thoughts on United season? I mean, us growing up as kids, and I'm obviously talking me and Daniel here, we would never in a million years thought that it would be Villa sat in the top 6 and United sat in the bottom 6. You're obviously a bit younger, so you've seen a bit more of a demise, whereas it's been, our lifetime was just United always top. What have you made of their season?
Yeah, I mean, just touching on like bits of what you were saying there is, since obviously Fergie's left, you've obviously had a decline, but you've still managed to pick up trophies as you've been going. Like, obviously, I think this will be your third trophy in 3 years if you win.
Mm-hmm.
If you win on Wednesday, which is mad to think where you are this season, where you have been, the previous 2 seasons. I remember under Mourinho, I think you had it weren't like the treble, but I remember you had a treble season where you won the Community Shield, FA Cup against Palace, and then I think it was the Europa League.
Europa League.
I think Van Gaal won the FA Cup as well. So you still have it, have that DNA in you, which has been happening. Sorry, ever since the Busby Babes. I was chatting to a United fan today, and he said he was like, he was a lot older than me. He's in his mid-50s, and he was saying like people of my generation and his generation and even slightly younger, United always seemed just to get the job done. Like when they were down and out, they seemed to just come up trumps. And he used the example obviously about the final against Bayern Munich at the Nou Camp, and he was like, we had no right to win that, and he was like, you have it, like it's just in the DNA. And going back to obviously the Munich air disaster, how the whole team's wiped out by a few players, and then years later you then come back with George Best and co, and then you end up winning the European Cup again, and it's just like I feel like that has through the generations, and every time I think, God, it's the luck's starting to fade. You end up winning a trophy still, and that's why I think you'll win on Wednesday. Just at the end of the day, like no matter where you are in the league, you're still one of the biggest clubs in the world. Especially probably the biggest in England. So it carries weight that, and like you said, the European campaign you've had has carried you through. And I agree with your point about you don't get those teams dropping down now because from the Champions League because that's a
Yeah,
big
that's a
factor.
big.
Because I think Emery he won it. He's won it 4 times. 3 of them were with Sevilla, and every time he won it with Sevilla, they had dropped down from the Champions League. So I mean that says enough. So like I remember when Chelsea won it, they dropped down from the Champions League. So yeah, it's just
It
I agree.
just shows the teams that are qualifying for that top tier Champions League that don't quite make it, finish third in their group, come down. There's still the amount of winners that have come that route, and that's why they got rid of it. It was not making it as competitive as it should be. But what it has done is it's just made the quality of it lower. And the teams in it, like Bodo Glimt, get into a semi-final. That shouldn't be happening in a major European competition. It doesn't matter if it's the second level of the competition, but like, with all due respect, they shouldn't be getting there. And you're coming up, but I expected so much more from Bilbao because everyone had been talking about how well they're playing in La Liga and that stadium is just such a fortress for them, and they just crumbled, and they just didn't look like they had the mental stability to be able to cope with it. Where United, yeah, they've got more experienced players, they've got players that have gone to major finals and stuff like that, dotted around the squad. But we'll see what happens next year. I think it shows from the limited kind of transfer news that we've had coming out of the club over the last couple of weeks of who we're looking at. We're not looking at top 5 Serie A players anymore. We're not looking at the best in the Bundesliga. We're looking at Wolves and getting their best player, and we're looking at a striker who's just been relegated, who wasn't good enough for City. Like that's the level we're on, which I do understand that he's got his certain type of players, and he bought a couple in January. Obviously, not many of us had ever heard of them. More prospects for the future, which a couple of them have done all right, but I don't think Dorgu looks at the level at all. Aiden Heaven looked all right, to be fair, until before he got injured, so he'll be a big plus for next year. Lenny Yoro's coming into his own now. He looks a decent player. But the whole recruitment strategy for the last 10 years is what's killing him at the moment because he's having to deal with these players that are on huge wages that they just can't shift.
I think your back line has been absolutely shafted with injuries as well. Like you says about Lenny Euro, then I mean, every defender you've had has seemed to have an injury at some point, and like he says, sometimes you're playing a back three and you've got some of the names that are in that back three you wouldn't, you think United, and like I said, you still got Johnny Evans, who I still don't know is playing football. Like I
don't know how.
like you said, Lenny Euro's has had his problems. The lit as well. It's weird, and like he says at the start, Scotty, it's like you wouldn't think, like you're in a European final, yet you sit 16th, and and yet we're fifth, and it's like it doesn't feel. It feels so weird, and to be in this sort of situation where we're going to like we played Tottenham, and even if they had their full strength, if they put their full strength team out, 99% of fans still would have said we would have won that game. And
yeah, absolutely.
Anyone I've spoken to about the game on Sunday have said, oh yeah, like Villa favourites. It's like, I know you're living in the past, but like, you go back 15 years, like, when would Villa ever go to Old Trafford and be favourites comfortably? And with me, I mean, obviously you know more than me. I'm not. Obviously, I know Amarin's he's working with a bad group of players.
Yeah.
But I always think in my head, whenever Emery gets stick off fans, I always think that when he came in, how he basically kept the same squad, barring he made a left back change in Moreno. But barring that, he had the exact same squad as Gerald and Dean Smith had, who were near the relegation zone, and he transformed us to top 7. And I feel like, in my opinion, I feel like a good coach can get the best out of whatever group he's got.
Yeah.
And I saw something earlier about since the end of December to now, you've only got 9 points in the league or something like that. Like you've gone from 30 in 5 months. You've gone from 30 points to 39 points.
Yeah.
And I think I said as well. I said to Scotty as well. I said that barring Fulham away, where you won 1-0, I think the only teams you've beaten under Amorim are the teams that have been relegated.
Yeah. Leicester and Ipswich are the only two.
Yeah. And to me, it's just it is laughable because, like, to me, it's like
it is laughable. It is laughable, and
Like you're saying about Emery, but do you think that's because Emery come in, and I'm not saying his style was simple, but Amorim's obviously trying to play 3-4-3 or however you want to word it. You need certain players for it, and listen, he might be right, and he's stuck by what his principles are, but I mean, if it carries on next year like that in the league, it'll be surely.
It was never going to be a quick fix. Like you said, he's got his philosophy that he wants to stick to, and you kind of have to admire that. But also, you might die on that sword. Russell Martin died on that sword. Vincent Kompany, I don't know how Vincent Kompany managed to wangle the Bayern job out of such a terrible season with Burnley, but Russell Martin's a prime example. He said he wasn't going to change. He didn't have the right players to play that system at that level. He wasn't backed to get the players in to do it, so he was kind of on a hide into nothing. Really, they were never going to survive. And my brother-in-law's a season ticket holder, and I went down for the final game last year, and he was like, I really don't want us to go up. He was like, we are just not ready as a club to go straight back up. Some teams are well established, and they're going to be relatively okay. And I think it was naive from the manager to do that. But Amorim has been, he's sold the club on this journey that he wants to go along, and he's got his philosophy and the way he wants to play football, and he is kind of doing square pegs and round holes at the moment. He's trying to introduce some players that he feels like will fit his system better, but there is glaring differences in some of the players that you just know are never going to achieve there with what he's asking them to do. Rashford, prime example, he's not that type of player. He needs to be stuck out on that left. He was being asked to be play inside because he plays 2 cams instead of the wide players. His fullbacks do a lot of the work. So Rashford was never going to fit. Anthony was never going to fit. And it's not that they're awful players. It's just that the system they've been asked to play, but also the culture behind the club at the moment, like, it's so toxic from top to bottom. So anyone coming in, they're going about it in completely the wrong way. They're overpaying stupid amounts on transfer fees and wages. So when they don't ultimately work out, they're stuck there. Luke Shaw, prime example, can't get rid of him, never fit. Can't get rid of him because he's on too high wages. Victor Lindelof, how has that guy been allowed to stay at that club so long? And he's playing in European semi-finals, and you're like, what are you expecting us to do with an aging Victor Lindelof, Johnny Evans, like you said, players like Casemiro? Why we bought him at the stage of his career to the level of money that it's just the decisions further above the manager are just so bad and terrible, and they've got us in a position where it has financially crippled us. So they're making all of these tough decisions of cost cutting, not sending coaches over to the final, only putting on a barbecue that they then have to pay for and stuff like that. It's just painful to go through what the decisions they're making. And it was, even with Amorim coming in, it was never going to be a quick fix. And I do hope he's given the time to actually try. If he still doesn't succeed and he's got the players in place, then he's only got himself to blame. I was expecting a new manager bounce at the end of last year. Didn't happen. Like you said, Emery came into Villa, didn't really change too much, but still managed to get them 10, 12 places higher up than where they were and stuff like that. Like, Amorim's a very new and inexperienced manager. He's only been one top job, really. And can you call Sporting a top job? Probably not. So was he going to be able to actually affect too much coming in, where Emery's got the experience of multiple leagues, dealing with PSG, dealing with difficult players at Arsenal, winning things with Sevilla. Like he's obviously gone in there and gone, right, no, we need to completely change, but you need to follow my rules. And I think he's got a little bit more clout behind him than Amorim. But that ultimately, do I think he's going to succeed? No, I think he'll go next year. I think he might walk before he's pushed. Because he doesn't want to tarnish he's got a big reputation that he doesn't want to tarnish. And I don't think if people see him fail at United, it will be tarnished, because it happens to everyone. So he'll still be able to get a top job. So I don't expect him to last next year, to be honest.
I mean, Ten Hag was given quite a lot of it. It'd be interesting to see if they give him a similar amount of time.
I think they will, but that's why I think he'll walk before he's pushed.
Yeah.
If it carries on the way it has done this year.
But that's where, like, nowadays with a lot of coaches, they don't get given the transfer windows, and obviously at the end of the day, like he says, the way that Amorim wants to play, he needs players, like he says, like how's Lindelof playing, and like you said, you still got Johnny Evans on your books. It's just like he needs his own players. So you give him one, maybe two transfer windows, and if it still doesn't work, then he's only got himself to blame. And I feel like, again, like me and Scott can only compare it to what we've seen with Emery. But as soon as Emery came in, obviously, again, like he has a lot more like prestige in the game than what obviously Amorim does. But as soon as he came in, there was leaks straight away saying that the owners are basically giving him the keys to do whatever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you remember, Scott, but he came in like the November, and then in the summer, the whole backroom staff had changed. Everyone was Spanish, and I don't know if you remember, Scott, but there was a report that came out saying that he wanted like a little apartment built onto the side of in the training ground, onto the side of where his office is, so he can work overnight. And I don't know if that actually took place or not, but I know there was a plan permission put in for it and stuff. And it's just things like that where, every transfer he has full, okay, he brought in Monchi, and he's brought in his own coaching staff, his own scouts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, our owners have literally given him the keys to the kingdom, allowed him to do whatever he wants. And that's rare nowadays, because nowadays you see more coaches than managers.
Mm-hmm.
I always think, I mean, it's a rare case where you would have that, because a lot of teams now obviously have a sporting director, or they have a director of football or whatnot. I mean, Emery's a special case, really, because Villa were going nowhere again fast. And I think we were getting linked with Amorim for a little bit before. Obviously, Emery got the job. And to be fair, I remember thinking, I'd take him. He looks unreal at Sporting.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching an hour video on how Sporting set up in a 3-4-3. And I remember thinking, oh, God, I can get used to this. I think it'll be well good.
Like, from the outside looking in, you think, Sporting play, like, they play really good football. But, like you said, Dan, is like, can you class them fully as like a proper European giant? I mean, obviously the Portuguese league don't even get talked about being in like the top 5 European league.
No, and the level he was operating at was obviously very good there, but he's managing and succeeding in a league, like you said, that isn't established. It's not very well known. You might see a couple of Portuguese teams last round of 16, quarter final maybe, but they don't really go too much further than that. It's almost a breeding ground for talent, really.
Because
for both players and coaches, really. You see how many coaches have come over from there. So, I think some of the stuff that he does is very commendable, and he's trying to do the right thing, and he kind of understand. He does. I think he didn't, but does understand the actual severity and the size of the job he's got there. I think he was probably sold a little under on just how bad it is. But Emery is a prime example. You get someone in that's relatively structured to a club that's not really succeeding, has got good pedigree in Europe. Give him the keys to the place. There's probably only 2 other managers that have got more control of their club than he has, and that's Guardiola and Arteta, probably, because they do everything from transfers to coaching to management. They do everything. So he's he's a good canny operator in Europe, and it was such a good find and good for Villa that he came to you at the time he did, because he, like you said, you weren't going anywhere fast, just about surviving. But someone like that can make real change, and he did it so quickly as well, with a squad where one of the best up and coming England managers was absolute disaster for however long Gerrard was
We
there.
don't talk about him.
Like, I almost forget he managed there. It's crazy, like just how fast it declined.
Do you know what the craziest thing is that I was meaning to send into the group chat, Scott. Last week I looked at our starting lineup for Steven Gerrard's first game. So this is like 2022 or whatever. And there's 7 of those players that started in Gerrard's first game, still start for us now. So you think we've only made 4?
He's a developer of players, isn't he?
That's what he's known for. Like, I listened to a podcast earlier today, and they were talking about whether Jack Grealish would come back, and they said, like, if you take away the whole him being a Villa fan, used to play for Villa aspect out of it, he was a world-class player. He's gone downhill. Going to an Emery team will pick him back up, and that is literally what Emery has done his whole career. He gets players. He gets players that were up here, then went down here, and then he'll pick them back up again. I mean, you look at like what he had done with Rashford in the short space that he had him. You know, again, you take away the whole boyhood club aspect away with Grealish, it'll be a perfect Emery signing when you think about it.
Yeah, there's not many players he's bought while he's been there with you that have been a flop.
Exactly that, yeah.
There's not many. He's bought well, and yeah, they might not be setting the world alight, but players like Leon Bailey's a decent player. Like, he's a good squad player to have around. Ezri Konsa's one of the best defenders in the league now. Like, he's just come on so far in the last 2 or 3 years. He's now in the mix for starting for England, which you wouldn't have said that 2 or 3 years ago when Gerrard was managing them.
I definitely would have said it, but no one believed.
I remember you just kept saying no one gets past him. Just look
does
at the
get
stats.
past.
No one dribbles past him.
Do you know what's mad? Yeah, is that, like, again, like we just said, me, Scott, Aaron, and my old man, we've all said for years that Ezri is so good. And how long have we said for, Scott, that we think he's England's best defender? We're going back to Dean Smith days, aren't we?
I've said it for years. I've just think, he's class. And I mean, he's still, even now, you never really talk about him because he does the same thing every game. Like, his consistency levels are great. And I think that is the one thing that Villa have got right. And you mentioned it at the start about United, is the recruitment. I know Constance wasn't an Emery signing, but our recruitment since the transfer window of Watkins, Cash, Martinez, that window, which was 5 years ago.
Behind closed doors season, wasn't it?
You could probably, on one hand, count the signings that haven't worked.
Yeah.
Comparing it to United, you could probably count on
one hand, one finger that's done well. Bruno Fernandes is really the only one I can think of.
If you look, like, if I looked at United squad now, you'd take Fernandes, you'd maybe Dalot, maybe Ahmad at a push, but you're not really picking many more. Whereas Villa squad now, you think, we're pretty, on paper and the eye test, we're in a good place. You touched on Rashford. You messaged me when Rashford signed, remember, and said, well, you can fucking have him.
You can have him, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I replied and said, I don't know, we might get a tune out of him.
Yeah.
What have you made? I know obviously he's injured now. He's missed the last couple of games. What have you made of him since he come to Villa? Do you think it was the right thing? And does it look bad on Amorim?
I don't think it looks bad on Amorim. I think it looks bad on the club. He was one of our best players no more than 2.5 years ago. I was actually watching. I was working from home today, and I had Premier League years on in the background, and it was the COVID year that they were showing. Villa scraped survival on the last day. United somehow, I think, finished third that season, and leapfrog Leicester on the last day. And he was lighting it up. He was our best player by a mile. They brought Fernandes in January of that year to really kind of shore up and bring some class into the squad. He hit the ground running straight away. It was an Ollie side that was exciting. We had Martial. Martial was playing well. Like it was mental. I think he's just been really, really mismanaged over the last 2 or 3 years. He's obviously a slightly more difficult personality than some others. He will stand up to what he believes in. He won't just go along with the flow. I'm really pleased for him. I think he needed to leave last year because he is still a good player. He can survive and flourish somewhere else. And it was just a money situation, and then he was just very lucky. It was quite last minute in the transfer window that Villa started to come in for him. It was like the last few days, wasn't it? And I said, yeah, it's a perfect fit for him. Like he'll get game time. He'll be loved there if he plays well. I think, yeah, him coming back to United would be an absolute disaster for him, and he won't. I don't think he will. And it's really, again, you're talking about history. You're talking about heritage of a club. Like he's a academy product. Like those were just treated so much better by the club 15, 20 years ago than they are now. And they've got this ridiculous record of having an academy product in every Premier League squad for, well, I don't know, 70, 80 years, however long it is. I can't see that lasting much longer because they're just not promoting within. They're buying young. The strategy now looks like buy young, hungry European talent, see how they get on, and go from there, which may be what Amorim wants, but it's losing the soul of the club as well. And Marcus Rashford is a prime example of that. Is a player that was loved no more than 2.5, 3 years ago by the club, was one of our best players, was a constant starter for England, changed games for England as well. And in a very short space of time, just because of the way he's been managed and how the club treated him, it's just gone backwards for him. So I'm really pleased for him, and it's good that he's gone somewhere where he has got game time, and they've given him the opportunity to just show what a good player he is, because he's still mid to late 20s now, 27, 28.
27, yeah.
So he's still got a good 4, 5, 6 years at the top.
Yeah, I think obviously if Villa don't qualify for Champions League, I don't think there's much chance we even go for it. No. I'm not sure if he'll end up at Villa. He's done well. I wouldn't say set the world alight, but the first few, what he done was get bums off seats again.
Yeah,
because he's exciting.
He's an exciting player.
When he first came in, he was obviously left wing. The last few games before he got injured, he was playing through the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I preferred him out on the left, and we've done obviously a few episodes on here where I think we both agreed, Jay, that he should be on the left.
Mm-hmm.
But where does he end up now?
It's difficult because he's already said he doesn't want to go to Saudi, which I completely appreciate. I kind of quite like the fact that he's not taking the easy way out and going for the money over there. But on the flip side, he's not willing to reduce his wages.
Yeah, so, and I think it'd be a lot for Villa.
Yeah, and Villa have got obviously all their PSR stuff, and not having that payment for the Champions League will be massive. So that will kind of really restrict or open up doors for your transfer market in the summer. So yeah, I don't know where he would go, because he's trying to tout himself to Barcelona, Inter Milan, those sorts of levels of clubs that just don't pay. Well, Barcelona do, but they haven't got any money to do it anymore. But and Inter Milan aren't going to pay him 325 grand a week. Bayern Munich aren't going to pay him 325 grand a week. And they kind of broke their model to get Harry Kane. They're not going to do it to get Marcus Rashford. Yeah. Harry Kane's just on another planet compared to.
I would like him to stay, but if it meant Ollie going, I would rather keep Ollie.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think, Joe. I think we did speak about it the other day, and you said the same. But I never thought I'd be saying that. Probably 2-3 years ago, like you said, when he was lighting it up, you would have thought. But then I never would have thought he would have ended up at Villa either.
No.
And that would be obviously disrespecting Villa at all. But like the reality is, we couldn't attract players like that 2-3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jay, would you end up at Villa or not?
Well, I mean, I think it relies on us getting Champions League. I sent an article to the group chat, I think last week, saying that he'd be happy coming back to Villa. It was by a reliable journalist as well. But again, he's not willing to reduces wages, which is a problem because I think it's quite
Fit
well.
earner is 150 a week, I think. We
Yeah,
was, and I think now we're covering 90%, which is obviously over 200 for the loan move. But what do we say? Villa might go to 200, but I can't see him going any higher than that.
yeah. So we got three players on 150, which are Booba, who we are trying to get a new contract. So if he signs, you're talking near 200.
Yeah.
Martinez, obviously, don't know what's going on with him, but that's 150, and then Tielemans as well. So you've got three players on 150, and then you were talking about Rashford, who's on I think 325, something like that, around there. And again, 2-3 years ago, barring Messi, he was probably the next best in the world when he had that season for United, when he was unbelievable. Like I remember that game again at the Emirates where he just got it. He was miles away from goal, and he just shifts and shoots. And he has that great lift off and the power to get shots off on range. And I remember just watching that, and I thought, I think he's the best in the world on form.
Yeah.
And I remember when he came to Villa, we were kind of like, there was a lot of fans there a bit sceptical about it. And at the end of the day, it was a loan, so if it don't work, it don't work. But if it does, then both people win. He either bargains for a greater move, and we get Champions League. So, and I said that if he can be anywhere near what he was like 2-3 years ago, then he'll get us Champions League. And he hasn't been at that level, but he isn't a million miles away. And more time with Emery, he can get to that point. I mean, that PSG at home game
I was
was
that
that
game, yeah.
first half. It was a bit quiet, but second half, I think that's the best individual performance if we're talking just one half. And he got taken off, and I think the 75th, 80th minute, didn't he? But he was unbelievable
Yeah.
against PSG, and that's the level that we got to get to because. We're going through this phase now where we're just excited to be involved in the Champions League race. We're excited to play PSG and Bayern Munich and all these teams. But we're going to get to a level, we qualify Champions League again. Next year when we're playing Juventus away or whatever, we're not thinking, we're just happy to make up the numbers. We're going to want to take games to teams, and I feel like we need players like a Rashford who has been there and done it. Like we've seen this year of Asensio since he's come in. It's just he oozes class, and you need that level of player. It's all right having like a Bailey to get us there. It's all right having like I don't know, like a Luka Dean to get us there. But then you always need that next level up, and I feel like a Rashford we have that. For me, I would
Ali,
love. Yeah,
is it?
and like for me, I would love it if we signed him again. Villa in the million years won't pay those wages. It'd have to be maybe like a 250 mark where he comes down, Villa go up maybe, and then again, if you're looking at if Martinez goes again, that's another subject. But if he goes, that's one of your highest wages off the bill. We're still living in the Gerrard days where we got Leander Dendonka, who's on loan at Anderlecht, can't get a game, by the way, so he doesn't even start for Anderlecht. He's on 80 grand a week. We've just got rid of Callum Chambers, who's on 75 grand a week. We've got Coutinho, who's on 120 a week. We're still living in this Gerrard Perslow era where we've got players who can't even get a game in Belgium, and where they're taking up so much of the wage bill. They're on more than Morgan Rogers, and Morgan Rogers has arguably been our best player this year.
Yeah.
So again, we're still in that phase of getting the deadwood out. But for me, yeah, I'd love if we signed him because I try to think of things from like a financial standpoint as well. You're taking a hit with the wages, but the publicity he gives you, our followers on all social media platforms when we signed him, the Asensio just skyrocketed. And I think me and you noticed, Scott, that when he signed, obviously everything was a bit puzzled when Duran went. It was a bit unexpected, but he went, hence why we got him and Asensio in last minute. Because our big signing was Marlon.
Yeah.
But then when Duran went, it was like, oh, okay, this has come up now because obviously it was obvious that Rashford was trying to get the Barca move. Didn't work out. We were there saying, look, we're here if you want us. He came over to us, and Disassi, Marlon, Garcia, and Asensio, all four signings we made in the January window, all got like these got a lot of publicity. We signed Rashford. There was one post, I think, and then that was it. There was no behind the scenes footage or anything. And I said to Scott that they're trying to protect him because everything that he's done outside of football, um, the media turn it in such a negative way. And I remember that they put up, like, this is when he first signed, they put up pictures of all the team training. He was not in a single picture. I'm talking, it took about a month and 6 weeks it took until they started putting him out on all the socials, but they protected him, and I think that's what he needed. He needed, and I remember when he first moved, he didn't move down to Birmingham, and then again, after about 4 or 5 weeks, he then moved down, and it's like, he's getting out of the Manchester area. He's out of the media spotlight because he's coming to a lesser club in Villa than United. Because no matter how good or bad United are, you're in that world spotlight the whole time, good, bad, whatever it may be. He's got out of that spotlight. Villa have shielded and protected him, and obviously, like we said, touched on Emery before, he takes players from here to here, and that's what he was doing. Again, that PSG game was unbelievable, and yeah, I think I don't know what his last game was. Was it Newcastle at home? Maybe was his last game, Scott? Was it
Might be City game, wasn't it?
City game? That was, and even that City game. I mean, he was unbelievable. But like,
He scored the penalty, didn't he?
scored the penalty. I think he hit the post as well.
Just that fuming that you've just called Villa a lesser team than United.
Well, it's true. Like, let's not beat around the
So
bush. Like,
fuming.
I'll take it.
let's not beat around the bush.
Let's
it's good. Yeah, just good to see him. Good to see him playing. He seems to be enjoying his football, expressing himself. Like you said, he gets people off their seat. Like he I know it was a bit of a meme around him, but you used to see the highlights of him just strolling around the pitch. He just didn't look like he wanted to be there. He'd had enough. He'd got disillusioned with it. And Amorim has been strong enough to say, okay, you are one of our highest paid players. You're one of our most famous graduates for the last 20 years, probably since the era of Scholes, Giggs, and all that lot. He's probably been up there with the best. But he was strong enough to say, look, if you don't want to be here, you can go. Just try and find yourself somewhere to go. Left him out of games, wasn't playing him. And I said, I've got people that might not be as talented as you, but might actually try a little bit harder. And you've got players like Garnacho who haven't really kicked on, and he's been a little bit disappointing again this year. He is still only young, but he hasn't really kicked on. But at least he tries, and he doesn't just saunter around a pitch. He will fly into a tackle. He will leave studs in on someone. He tries to actually try. I think it was a good sign, very, very kind of early on, that Amorim was not going to stand up to he was going to stand up to these people and not be steamrolled by them. And Marcus Rashford probably had a lot of clout at that club. He'd been there a long time. He was one of the highest paid players there. He was loved there by the fans. So he probably had a lot of cards to play with management and things like that. So someone new coming in, giving him the opportunity to get a fresh start, it's been good to see. So yeah, I do hope Villa, all jokes aside, I do hope Villa do get Champions League football, because I can't stand Chelsea. So hopefully they're in Champions League instead of them, and they do find the funds to get him, because it looks like a pretty good home for him, and it can only benefit the player. Get himself back in the England squad. But yeah, United's just not the place for him anymore, unfortunately.
We'll touch on the game. I mean, United's home, they've lost 9 out of 18 games. Obviously, as it stands, Villa are 5th on 66, same as Chelsea, and Newcastle are 4th and 3rd. City have got a game to play tomorrow against Bournemouth. I mean, I've got the fear because it's Old Trafford, and our record at Old Trafford is absolutely woeful.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 2 wins in 17 or something like that.
Yeah, rarely. I remember, what is it, Gabby in a header when we won, and Courtney Hawes won it a few years ago.
It was the Gabby header 1-0 in the light, in that like nice in the Acorns blue, in the Acorns blue kit, and then Courtney Hawes header with the Fernandez penalty.
I mean, predictions for Sunday? What are you both going for? Okay, I'll go with you first.
Again,
Just give me a score.
okay, I'll go 2-1 Villa.
I didn't hear what you said.
2-1 Villa.
Dennis?
I think it's going to be easy for Villa, to be completely honest. I think we would have clocked out by then. Probably 3-0. I would go. We can't hit a barn door at the moment anyway. Only in Europe anyway.
I don't know why you've said that, because now you've said that you can't hit a barn door. You know you're going to send us for fucking 6.
Yeah.
Hoyland, yeah.
Hoyland definitely score.
He's getting his first goals of the season.
Yeah.
What do we think the best? I've been thinking about this. The best permutation from Wednesday's game, is it United beat Spurs, they're celebrating but they're buzzing, or is it they lose to Spurs and they're just down in the dumps? They don't even want to play that last game at home because they know they're going to get slaughtered.
I personally think even if we win it, it will be a case of clocking off. Last game of the season, let's just get out of here basically. So I think even if they do win it, I think either way they'll be on the beaches after Wednesday. So that's why I'm kind of on the side that it'll be relatively easy for Villa.
Joe?
I've said that I'd like United to. I think it'll be better for us if United win, just because you win, you go on the piss, and then he might put out a rotated squad. I don't know what squad. But then again, if they don't if they do win, then you go into Old Trafford, everyone's in a celebratory mood. Like you got the Europa League trophy there, showing off in front of everyone. Does that then G them up for the game? Like you don't know. And then if they lose, then they are already down in dumps. They're not going to be asked. There's pros and cons to both. Again, for me, I think it'll be better if extra time penalties, United win. That's how I look at it. United win would be best.
Yeah. I mean,
End of the day, you win a major European trophy. You're not thinking your season's done. Then you're not thinking about the game on Sunday. You're not thinking, we'll celebrate. We'll celebrate after. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I appreciate that. In terms of the top 5 and Villa, Danners, who is your money on at the top 5?
I think Villa will finish in the top 5. Personally, I think Newcastle and City. I think City will win tomorrow. So that basically rubber stamps them in it. I don't think Newcastle will go anywhere. So it's a shootout between you and Chelsea, and it'd be really good to see you guys in Europe again, because it was a bit of a fairy tale year this year, and it's like, let's just go along for the ride. If we go out in the group, blah blah blah. Well, actually, no, we've got decent players. We've got a decent European manager. We can actually kind of scare top teams, and you ran PSG, who have been by far the best team in that competition, ran them as close as anyone. So I think having new blood in the Champions League is always good. I kind of banking on you guys to get in, and then Chelsea winning the Conference League. We'll get into Europa League anyway. So
I mean the Forest Chelsea game that'd be tough. You'd fancy probably Forest at home because Chelsea's away record since Christmas is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, Villa's record at Old Trafford is shocking.
Yeah, but it's a very different Villa, even to last season. It's a very different Villa and a very different United. And there's just no way if we'd have spoken in August and you said United will be finishing 16th or 17th this season, there's no way I'd have believed you. I'd have gone 8th or 9th, worst case scenario. It would be a good bet that Villa would be there or thereabouts for European football again. Just obviously, in hindsight, not knowing how they're going to deal with the European nights and stuff like that, and your form kind of has dropped off a little after those games, and it has affected the squad. But no, I think it's a very different Villa and a very different United. So.
Yeah. I mean, it took us a while to adjust to it. I think that's what killed us at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Honestly, if we'd adjusted quicker, we could have been second.
Mm-hmm.
There was so many games after a European game where we just didn't turn up, or we dropped points late on, or
I think like it was well known about the European games. For me, I kind of took it as like I didn't read too much into it because I think first we done after Young Boys, our first game in Champions League, we beat Wolves 3-1, and then we ended up, I think, drawing or losing the next six. But those games were tough. I remember it was Chelsea. I think we had Chelsea
They
away.
had tough games, but like United was in that. It was, what was that, 0-0? It's like
Yeah,
Villa at home. Like we've obviously pretty much won every game at home. You know, we've only dropped a few. Like in terms, we've lost once at home all season. But there were games when you look back, and every team will say that. Like I appreciate that, but I mean, it's Villa. They could have been, and like if we don't get top five, and obviously we'll talk about it on a different episode. Like it's going to be, it will go down as a nearly season. And then again, it comes down to mentality and DNA. And if United go and win on Wednesday, it just shows that Villa are getting closer. But there's that final little step to actually start winning trophies. And it's not easy. I was listening to Paul Merson yesterday saying, but it's not, that last step to win trophies is not, it's hard. And yeah, let's be honest, like you said, Dan, we'd have never dreamed in a world where Villa were chasing Champions League and United would, like you said, another year, challenging for relegation.
I think that's the worry now, where like the gap. I always used to think growing up that the gap from League One to Championship was bigger than the Championship to the Prem, but now with the money in the Prem, the gap from the Championship to the Prem it's just too big. And I'm looking at Leeds. Obviously, Leeds are going in the right way with the ownership that they got, and but like if they don't get their recruitment right in the summer, they're going to be in danger again. Because I look at their squad player for player, and it's bad. Like if you're talking like a Premier League standard, it's really bad. And they won that league.
Yeah.
They won it like the last kick of game against Plymouth last game of season. I'm just thinking like, if that's the best that the Championship has to offer, again, like if there's better teams coming up, like if there was this year, for example, I do think United and Spurs, like it would have been very interesting to see what would
It
have
would have
actually
been.
have happened.
It would have been. I think it's a mix of the gap being bigger. I do agree with that. I think the standard of the Championship is well, the standard of the Premier League is getting so much higher. I think it's finding when you see three teams come up and you're looking at Burnley and you're looking at Leeds and hopefully Sunderland, or if Sheffield United win, but ideally like Sunderland to come up. You look at those three teams and you go, okay, if two of them survive, which two Premier League teams are going to be worse than them? It's difficult to find. West Ham, they're never going to go down. Everton flirt with it every single year. They're never going to go down. Hopefully United kind of improve next year. Spurs will probably improve next year. Then you're looking at the likes of Bournemouth, Brentford, Crystal Palace. They're never going to go down. So those teams, the Brentford, Bournemouth, Palaces, have kind of established themselves in the Premier League at the perfect time. With all the money that they've got, they've built decent squads, and it's made that gap so big. And it's not that the Championship is necessarily getting worse; it's just the Premier League is getting better and more competitive. And you're seeing Bournemouth do well. You're seeing Nottingham Forest fighting for Champions League places, let alone European places. So, yeah, it does worry you that it's just going to be the same next year, because it'll be the third year in a row then that all three come up and go straight back down. I think I do agree Leeds are probably best set up to do it. Burnley got promoted by just being airtight and conceding a record amount of goals, like a disgusting little amount of goals. But they're not going to be able to do that in the Premier League.
No,
like, you look at their back five, three of them have already been relegated from the Premier League once in their career anyway.
Yeah, so, and you said about Russell Martin earlier. I'm pretty sure Scott Parker did an interview saying we've gone up, but we've been really boring.
Yeah,
I was
and
like,
he's not going to change.
But like, yeah, and like, what are you saying? You're going to get promoted and all of a sudden trying to play really expansive football? Like,
yeah, you're just going to get torn apart.
Your base is to keep clean sheets and try and just grind a result out here and there. Yeah. I was talking about it at work, and yeah, I agree. Leeds are the one team that you think might have a chance. Mainly, this Ellen Rhodes obviously could be a fortress and whatnot. But again, the recruitment, I think any team is one or two transfer windows away. If you sell the wrong players and don't bring in the right ones, then all of a sudden you're in trouble. Look at United, look at You know, Tottenham didn't really sign anyone in the summer, did they? You know,
No, they got
Solanke,
Bergwall.
Solanke was
and
the
then they,
main one, wasn't
and
he?
obviously, yeah, but like they weren't really proven players other than Solanke. You know,
I think you look at like the teams that you're like when you come up to the Prem. If you think of if you this season, if you just say like on paper the worst team, barring the three that got promoted, say probably Wolves. You look and they have that one player.
Mm-hmm.
Sold for 65 million. They every like you look at Brentford, they're like a mid-table club. You look at the talent that they've got. They got Mbuemo, who's one of the best players in the Prem. They got Wissu, who's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jensen and Norgard in the middle. Like you look at Palace. I think Eze's got a £65 million release clause. You look at him. Like I mean, Saar every time we play against him just absolutely tears us a new one. You got Adam Wharton, who I think should start for England, and we're talking about mid-table clubs. You got Everton, who scrape relegation every single season. They got England's number one in goal,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like that's the level of the Prem where
Yeah.
the teams at the very bottom have national like play. They start for their national teams, and it's like he says, I don't think it's a situation where the championship's got worse. If anything, it's got a little bit better, but it's more so the
Yeah.
fact that the money in the Prem now is an absolute joke.
Yeah.
Teams can't compete.
No.
it's not. There's no easy games in the Prem.
No,
Like every time we go to Villa, you'd be like, well, you'd fancy it today, but then, like you said, you look and you think, right, you got to keep an Eze quiet or an Embuemo or a Semenyo, like them kind of play. Every team has a player that will hurt you, or
Mm-hmm.
two or three that will
Mm-hmm.
hurt you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's caught out Tottenham and United because the gap isn't as big now. You've got like Newcastle breaking for the top six, Villa doing it. Really, Bournemouth, Fulham, Brentford were only what 5-6 games ago. We were doing like episodes on here, and we were saying, "Bloody hell! Like we need to beat them to get away from them."
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
It's so tight now, and every team or every club has got to improve season on season to just stay in the top half.
And
Like
they got to spend so much money, haven't they? And like years, maybe probably 5-6 years ago, that parachute payment would be a lot.
yeah,
Would be a big thing for them to stabilise and be able to bounce straight back. To be a mid-table bog standard Premier League team, you're needing to spend 250 million
yeah.
over
Well,
2 or 3 transfer windows. They can't
Ipswich
afford to do that.
spent quite a lot, didn't they, over the course of the 2 windows? But the quality of player they're getting in, because teams like I don't know, a Brighton or a Brentford will just be like, "Come and play here. You're
Yeah,
guaranteed league each."
exactly. And they're having to cherry pick out of top 4 academies uh,
Yeah,
to try and find their players, and that's not going to give you guaranteed success, and it's not going to give you immediate success. So it just makes it so much more difficult. But I mean, thankfully for United, the 3 that came up were so bad.
I can't see it being that bad last year, and like realistically, they're probably favourites for Wednesday.
Yeah,
Um,
which is
I'm not
baffling.
I'm not going to say I hope you win because I don't like either of them.
That's fair enough. I hope
But
Chelsea get Champions League as well.
right, I think that'll do us. We've done an hour, which is probably our longest ever episode. So
yeah, it is.
but that was a good chat. Do you want to finish up on anything or anything else to say?
No. Good luck Sunday.
Yeah, well, good luck Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll be
I'll
watching it through teary eyes probably, or behind a cushion.
be 0-0 penalties, and
Yeah,
it'll be
he's got it written. Which
you
is
miss, we
absolutely.
miss, we miss
We're going to
penalties.
both absolutely stink the place out. And it'll be the
Or
worst European final.
it could be a thriller. Like you said, you might do your 5-minute miracle against
Yeah,
Leon or first half against Bilbao. I mean, you never know.
you
They're a
never know.
different beast in Europe.
Yeah.
But if you win Wednesday and we win Sunday and get Champions League, then we're all happy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll see you in the Champions League. Christ.
Right, Danners, thanks for coming on.
No worries, mate.
We'll get you on again, Jay. We will do an episode after Sunday.
Yep.
Thanks for watching, everyone. If you're
Cool.
new, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and up the Villa.
Cheers, guys.